Okay, first question. Who came here to hear stories about social engineering of the Pirate Queen? Okay, so you have been social engineered. So disclaimer, it's not really about stories. So I thought it would attract people, but it's more about my research into social engineering and psychology, and you will see. So that's me, Sharka. People call me Sharks. I also here by my other persona, but I'll tell you about that later. So in my free time, I do kendo. It's a Japanese martial art. Not as everyone says, I'm not beating people with sticks. It's a sword. So yeah, that's a free time. In my free time, I'm hunting bugs. So right now under a HackerOne and a Sinak Reds team. Before hacking took over my life, I did lots around music. So this is my last gig as a VJ. So even though it's a live event, I'm still back behind the computer. I'm big on community, so you can find me. People around me know that I'm part of OWASP Manchester. I am also one of the co-founders of the Paris group. Yeah, this is a Paris DEFCON group that we have people here. I'm also ambassador for BSides Athens, so I'm sort of like all over the place. Another thing, we just started, me and Chrissy, we just started a new project called Mazu. I'll explain about that later. That's all of this is my just free time. So this is where I work. So SureCloud, it's amazing company. I get to do everything from web application infrastructure, payment systems to social engineering. So what happened when I was doing the interviews, I kept saying like, I want to do social engineering and physical security. And the company is great at listening to you. So what happened? My boss called me a week before I was meant to start. He's like, so what would you say your first engagement will be? Social engineering. You have 2 days. You need to get into 3 offices. Okay. Well, needless to say, the first day I got into server room, walled out with the laptop and some sensitive documents. So I'm glad they trust me. So the Pirate Queen that we are talking about, so she's my alter ego that I use. But originally, she actually existed. She was super kick-ass. So when her dad didn't want to take her with him, so what she did, she cut her hair and she social engineered her way onto the ship. So yeah, that's why I love her. But the Grace O'Malley of the 21st century is a social engineer. So she does all these things using fake IDs. I love this, is one of my clients. So he sent me a picture of what they have on their intranet. So that was pretty funny. So social engineering, I'm not sure if everyone knows, but originally it was it is still political science. So they said that as machines need engineers, people need social engineers. So it was probably a good thing, or it was meant to be, but it was then later used for social engineering campaigns in authoritarian governments like Soviet Union, Chinese government, or Khmer Rouge genocides in Cambodia. But probably everyone knows this, right? So this is a perfect example. It's a mass manipulation using a data on people. As we know it, people are always asking, what is it? What is it that you do? Do you like break into buildings like super spy? But it's more lots of Googling, Google Docs to Google Earth, gathering open source intelligence, lots of courage. Our studying people's facial expressions, analyzing everyone's body language. You can see me. Maybe later on I'll be just sitting in a corner and looking at people's feet and hands. And sometimes lots of luck. So it's of course more than that. I see it as these like 3 phases. So the pre-phase is the one where you do all the phishing, all the ishings, And it's also, so it's gathering the OSINT for your pretext, and it's the remote part of what you're doing. The second phase, the action phase as I call it, is the direct interaction with your target. It's where you need to manipulate the people to get where you need to go. Where the third one, I call it get DA and get out, which is what most people do, but I think getting domain admin it's not just about that. Of course, you sit down, you try to find a vacant meeting room, and you get in, perfect. If they don't have NAC, you can run your responder and you do what you do. But I think it's important to understand who's the customer. So is it a financial company? So I'm going to go and I'm going to target their financial department, try to extract documents from there. Or steal someone's laptop. My favorite pretext, you just walk to someone and you're just high enough so everyone hears around. You're I'm coming from IT. There is issues with your laptop. We are seeing some strange behavior. It looks like when you visited some of the porn sites, you got infected. The guy just gets red and he's sort of pushing you. And so I keep yeah, we need to do forensics. So I'm gonna take it. He's yeah, please take it. Just go. So. The third phase is more about computers, and we know how to make them behave or misbehave, but they are predictable. But what I want to talk about is the second phase, because it's about hacking people and they are not predictable in most cases. So who can be our target? Security guards, yes, but they're not really like this. I wish. It's not as bad. It could get to this, but it's mostly like this. Other targets are receptionists or just workers in an office. Usually everyone is super busy, so if you sit down and ask if you can take a seat, connect to the network, yeah, sure. Or this is one of my last engagements, there is no target and there is even a badge on the table. Story, so I do what I do, so I stole it. And I sort of went through the barriers, and because the elevators were armed with the card readers. And then I look at it, and it was not my client. And I'm oops. So I actually had to go back and had to put it, by that time I already actually went to the building from parking lot and went through 7 doors armed with card readers. So this was just I thought I will just get another attack vector, but yeah, didn't really need it. So what do they have in common? Our targets. They're human, right? And what all humans have? Our command and control server. So just to explain, so in the brain, there are 3 different brains. So the reptilian one is the oldest one. It's all the instincts. But all the instincts are then, the reactions are done by the limbic brain. And then you have neocortex. It's the new brain. So the limbic brain that is showing the reactions is the brain of truth. It's the one what we are looking out for. Whereas the neocortex is the thinking brain. It's the lying brain. So we know that there are, probably everyone knows fight and flight. There is actually a third one. So fight, please don't fight your customers. If they will want to fight you, just flight. The third one is not this, but talking about cats, when they are attacking, and I think you can see it a lot in nature, you can see that they're, when they try to attack antelope, the antelope freezes. So that's the third. It's fight, flight, and freeze. Actually, the freeze was added around 2002, but it's one of the 3 reactions. So pacifying behaviors. These are the behaviors that you can see in your targets when you're talking to them when they are not in a calm state. It's when they're soothing themselves. The brain is like sending out, like, help me, like I'm stressed, like do something. So we will see what kind of behaviors we can, it actually, they are, but they are all together, they're called pacifying behaviors. So, who can tell me which part of the body is the most honest one? Where would you look? Skeleton. Yeah, but like, where?
Feet.
Place.
Feet, where? Eyes, hands. Feet. And as it goes up, there is less and less honesty. Which is quite interesting because we are usually reading face and maybe hands, but feet, like, I'll show you what kind of behaviors to look out for. But what I usually do, when I get approached, by maybe, let's say, a security guard, I usually pretend to look for something in my pockets and I look at his feet. It was a security guard that obviously was the smiley, nice one. And that's another behavior, that I will talk about, like in the face. He saw me, his eyebrows went up, so there was like a sort of like a shock, and then he sort of like squinted, so I knew that he knew that I didn't belong. I later got told that this guy knows like all 800 employees in the building. And this guy comes to me, he's like, are you visiting? And has his feet like this, so like a L, which meant I have to ask you, but I want to get away. So what I did, personal space, I'll talk about it afterwards as well. So I sort of did a step forward to make him less comfortable. And then I kept making it sort of like longer and longer, all the answers and questions. So he's like more and more uncomfortable. So at the point where he was like, can you show me your badge? That was just my piece of paper printed on my 20-pound printer. So when I flashed it, he was like, yeah, go. He didn't want to deal with me anymore. So yeah, this is a really interesting part. So why the face is the most lying one? Is the face because since you're born, you're told, don't make this face. Look happy. So face is the one where that's most lying. Important, and I will talk about it a lot, baseline. Look for clusters of behaviors. So like you need to understand the person. It could be that they look nervous, they're tapping their feet or hands, but it could be a medical condition. So you need to baseline them and look for clusters of behaviors. So are they tapping their feet and hands as well? So it's more of a being sure. So gravity-defying behaviors that's the positive one. So like you can, if person is like all happy, like you can tell, except head. So if someone like puts his head up like this, means that they're sort of territorial, and that's not a positive behavior. Mirroring behaviors, that's the feelings of trust, interest, of liking. I see it a lot. It's really interesting. I sort of like try this. Even like when I touch my glasses and it's a receptionist that obviously likes me, she touches her forehead as well, even like without the glasses. It's really interesting. And you can see like people are sort of, if you're doing step here, they do it as well. It's a good way how to make sure that your target, you're feeling like is liking you and trust your pretext, actually trust you. So mold your target's perception. Reality is objective, but your perception of reality is subjective. So there is one reality, but that we have perception of the reality is different for everyone else. And it's like a lens through which people are looking at the reality. So if we can alter those lenses, we can alter their reality in a way. It's from a book from Nicole and the Methods of Persuasion. So feet and knee. So feet shifting direction, I was talking about it. It shows how the person really feels. I love to like watch in a restaurant. So like sometimes you see a couple when one of them is sort of like pointing out is that the person likely doesn't want to be there. Knee clasping. So it's like when they're holding their feet, and I see it a lot when I approach someone in an office that I'm just social engineering in, and I'm asking something that they do this, it looks like they just want to go. They don't want to be there. They don't want to deal with me, and they're really nervous. So I try to social engineer them into feeling better. So leg crossing is the opposite of foot and ankle locking. So leg crossing, what do you think? Is it positive? That is the person feeling calm, or are they stressed? Stressed, calm. They're calm, because going back to fight, flight, freeze, if you're like this, you can't do anything. You can you're losing your balance. So that means that the person trusts you and they feel really good about you. So I see it sometimes where it's a security guard that comes up to me and he's like, "Oh, what you doing here?" They're like, well, like this. Like they want to be helpful. So significant change in intensity. So, again, I was talking about, the baselining. So it could be that someone is tapping their feet all the time. So you need to look out for maybe them stopping. So that it means that they're stressed. So torso, hip, chest, and shoulders. This part of the body has most of the vital organs. So you have heart, intestines, genitals. So it's a part of the body that also shows lots of reactions. So leaning away towards you, that's normal, like when it's about the personal space. So you can see if the person trusts you or not. So I see that a lot. So it could be either arms. So they're like putting a barrier between you, or I see it a lot. Just a couple of days ago, I was, social engineering one receptionist, and she was so nervous, and she was like grabbing stuff and like putting it on the table in front, like between us, because she was like building but she gave me all access pass anyway, so it's fine. I talked about the personal space. So the shoulders, sometimes you see it as well. You ask someone something and they they look like a turtle. So it's like they're not sure about themselves. So arms, you can see this is a arm akimbo. It's like a very territorial. I see it a lot with like a police officers. You can see probably around, but I see it a lot with security guards because they're just sure of themselves. For you, what's important? Just behave normal. Like people that are stressed are going into the freeze reaction. So it's like you're trying to pretend like you're not there. You're trying to be invisible, and that doesn't look invisible. Just saying. Tattoos, it's a good speaking point. So if you're seeing people with tattoos, you can sort of decide what's your approach to your target. Hands, fingers, so keep them visible. So, it's a thing. You're being seen as not someone that they can trust. So keep them, somewhere where they can see them. Again, nervous hands, I was talking about the context. So you need to understand who the person is, which is, it's difficult because it's usually you're stressed and you need to assess them based on a couple of seconds. They're just walking up to you but it's really important. So steepling, so is Barnes doing. So that's it's like a evil kind of thing, but it actually means high confidence. But it could change into the hand wringing, which is the next one, which is the opposite. So you can understand sometimes it goes from this. I come to the receptionist and I say, hey, and I'm being nice. And she's like, okay, can I help you? And I start like the IT lingo. So she she just lets me go. She doesn't have any questions. And she goes into hand wringing. So it means like it's good for me, because if she doesn't understand, then she's more likely to let me go. Touching neck. So that's the pacifying behavior we were talking about. It's, a man usually, they are touching their neck because they're like sort of it's the blood flow. They're trying to calm themselves down. Whereas for women, they're touching the neck dimple, or they're playing with whatever they have, like a jewelry. I saw it. So the receptionist that I social engineered this week, we then had walk through with the client, and she still kept calling me Grace. And I was like, can I tell her? Like, I just felt really bad. So like, I told her, and she was just looking at me, and she had this like a jewelry. She was just throwing it like this. She's like, oh, okay. I'm like, it's fine. Like, you know. So face, we're talking about macro and micro expressions. So macro expressions are fake, usually, or can be faked. Smile can be faked. You can tell difference when someone is really smiling honestly, but it can be faked. So micro expressions are like a data leaks of your face. So they're only about 1/25th of a second, but they are universal, and it's a great thing to actually learn them. I will talk about a little bit later. Did anyone see Lie to Me?
Yeah.
So that's exactly from there. And it's based on Paul Ekman, and Paul Ekman actually has like a training, and it's online, and it's great. It costs like $200, but it's worth it. It teaches you everything, and I've been studying it to like 98% accuracy on my tests, and it helps a lot. So yeah, anger, as you can see, like you will probably see some teeth and some the nose, and it's sort of like similar to fear, but the eyes are bigger in fear. So, but it's really difficult then if you're being tested on the micro expressions and it really just flashes. It's just a moment. It's kind of difficult to see, but yeah. So said, yeah, we can all like I believe it's called like a mouth purse. So like you do this, disgust. So it's again, you can tell by the nose and front. Surprise, open mouth, big eyes. Contempt. I would say one thing, I do this a lot myself. Back to baseline. It's like I'm not sort of jerk most of the time, but it's just what I do. So it's important to baseline. Like, yeah, what I usually say, it's like the bad part of me is grace. So my dad, I wrote an article for SE magazine, and my dad called me and was like, so I wrote the article and I researched a little bit about social engineering. And then like I paused and he's like, are you a bad person? I'm like, no, it's grace. So, yeah, so unhappiness, that's really easy. So you can as well read your target based on their physical traits. So this is from a book from Chinese medicine, but it makes sense because these lines, these are expressions that are using quite often. So you can use even the wrinkles on your target's face to understand who they are or how they are. So what I wish I knew before diving head first, I don't know, I'm guessing you want to start social engineering as well, you want to learn, right? So for me, I would say build an alter ego or another persona. It's just, if someone asks you at the bar, hey, how are you? What's your name? Grace? And then you can build that persona. It's, by now, if someone would shout Grace in the street, I would turn around. But it was the first social engineering that I did. So I was pretending to be auditing asset IDs. And this guy was over helpful. So he led me to server room as well, because I, of course, needed to check the asset IDs in the service as well. And then I'm just like, whoa, like I really did it. Like I'm in a server room. Like how is that possible? And that was in my head, of course. And then the guy is like, Gracie. And then I'm looking at him like blank. Because like at that point, it was my first social engineering. I was not like one with my social engineering alter ego. So I think that's really important. And you can do that before actually starting any social engineering job. As I said, please don't break into buildings without contract or get out of jail free card. So, I said it right. Just no one can blame me afterwards. Reach out to other social engineers that you probably know on Twitter. It could be me, or in my case, I reached out to Jack Hide and Seek. She is amazing. She's very lovely and she was so helpful and it helped me a lot. So I really recommend that. Read people. Maybe don't be like me, don't sit in a corner, but like just look around how people interact. It's, I love to look at people like when you're in a restaurant, when they're on a date. That's interesting. What I kind of like is blind date shows on YouTube. I've been watching, so it's really interesting because they let the people, they come blindfolded, they sit down, and then they take them off. And then you can see like the first reaction. And it's usually, they sort of try to be either like cool, but you can sometimes see like the disgust or like a... And what's great, like then towards the end they say there is a specific one, I don't remember the name, I can tell you afterwards. There is a specific one where they say towards the end, when I first saw you, I would date you. And then they say afterwards how the talking to them changed. But it's really interesting because it's a real interaction and there is lots of data leaking out of their face. So books, I read those. I am sort of through the phase reading in Chinese medicine because it's huge, but that helps as well. There is lots of that I would like to cover. But I don't have time. So watch me and Chrissy under Mazu. I then give you all these details. You can reach out to me and have a look at Mazu for our future research, where we are doing currently RFID and Proxmark, and there is some great stuff going on. That's it.